hidden away on the front lines of eastern Ukraine is a potentially deadly force. Volunteer fighters who saved the nation from invaders remain armed and dangerous, and could always turn their weapons on their own government.
То есть объясни ему, что сейчас мы герои-красавцы, а завтра мы приказом президента станем террористами.
So what would you do if the government declared you a terrorist and made you a criminal?
Уже были попытки просто на самом деле там, захватить нашу базу, но у них не получилось. Мы займем круговую оборону, а там посмотрим, насколько их много.
It's the annual Day of the Defender, and the police are on high alert. The event is meant to mark Ukraine's recent resistance to Russian aggression. But it's become a rallying point for people who celebrate violent struggle and love defying authority. People like the volunteers.
So on this glorious Day of the Defender in Ukraine, I'm seeing a lot of volunteer battalion flags and patches. I'm also seeing a lot of angry yelling dudes in black masks and various forms of baklava. What could go wrong?
Amidst the flowers and the children's tributes, flashes of something more sinister. Groups of armed men strut through the square with dubious iconography. That yellow armband is a Volksangel, a German symbol used by several SS divisions during the Second World War. Far-right graffiti is appearing, daubed on the walls of the city. But the most organised and perhaps the most effective were a small number of far-right groups. When it came to confrontations with the police, it was often the nationalists who were the loudest and the most violent. A group calling itself the Right Sector is perhaps the largest. Its members can be seen marching around Kiev in columns of about a dozen. Mostly they carry baseball bats. I asked them about their political beliefs.
Национал-социалистская тематика иногда в некоторых людях она есть проступает.
Это подразумевается что? Что...
Ну, как бы, чтобы чистая нация. Ну, не то, что там, как бы у Гитлера как было, но в своем роде немножко, ну, маленько, но было, чтобы своя нация.
What about the East, I asked? What about Crimea, where many Ukrainians feel close historical ties to Russia?
Кому нравится Россия, пусть едут в Россию. Украина только для украинцев.
And hardcore supporters. Listen to these two middle-aged ladies, ordinary residents of Kiev.
Как-то, понимаете, никаких изменений не происходит, ни лучше не становится. Но я уже не говорю о том, что в первую очередь хотят все, чтобы закончилась, конечно, война. Ну и потом же коррупция. Все же видят, что коррупция та же самая осталась, что и было раньше. Как будто бы говорят, что все борются с коррупцией, но никто этого не замечает. И все, которые там занимают это место, они, ну что они могут новое? А вот проводить только какая-то новая, так сказать, течия какая-то новая.
Мне кажется, просто нет больше никого, кто мог бы сейчас объединить людей.
Shaken by revolutions, exhausted by a war that shows no signs of abating, the Ukrainian state is weak. Against this backdrop, a radical right party with a well-armed military wing is gaining strength. History suggests that is a dangerous combination.
And the crowds, one thing seemed pretty clear about them. They weren't bothered by the fact that this event was organized by the Azov Movement, a far-right group that has increasingly been linked to violence around the world.
The shooter is linked to a 74-page manifesto filled with white supremacist rhetoric.
FBI agents say he expressed a desire to travel to Ukraine to fight with a far-right paramilitary group.
At least one member of an American hate group also trained in Ukraine, with Azov Battalion.
According to the FBI, domestic terrorists killed 39 people in fiscal year 2019, making it the most deadly year for domestic terrorism since the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing.
The threat of white nationalism has evolved since Oklahoma City, where a domestic terrorist used a truck bomb to kill at least 168 people. Police don't tend to see such terrorists as lone wolves acting in isolation anymore. It's become clear to law enforcement that these attackers often have links to a global network, one with common goals and shared ideology.
We are looking very hard at white supremacists or neo-Nazis here, connecting through social media online with like-minded individuals overseas, and in some cases actually traveling overseas to train.
Over the last few years, experts in violent extremism have grown especially alarmed about the Azov Movement. The group emerged from the revolution that swept across Ukraine in 2014, and it has gotten a lot stronger amid the ongoing war with pro-Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. The fighting in that region has become kind of ideal breeding ground for militias like Azov. At their public events, one thing that surprised me was how many Ukrainians tend to see Azov not as militants or extremists, but as war heroes. In Kiev, the capital, I watched an Independence Day parade where veterans of the Azov Battalion marched alongside other volunteer militias, surrounded by cheering crowds, who thanked them for defending Ukraine against Russia. But even at the march, there were signs of the far-right ideology that's so common inside Azov. The symbols on their flags have been especially controversial. Azov says it combines the letters I and N for idea of nation, but extremism experts see it as an emblem of Nazism.
The official symbol of Azov, it's a version of Volksangel. It was one of the symbols of one of SS division during the World War II. It is one of more or less usual symbols for neo-Nazi groups all over the world.
And it's not just about their symbols. When it was founded in 2014, Azov drew many of its commanders and recruits from Ukraine's most notorious far-right groups, including outright neo-Nazis.
We basically recruited everyone who could hold weapons in their hand when the Ukrainian state was paralyzed and the defense of the Ukrainian state was totally in the hands of Ukrainian volunteers. So there were many war adventurers, guys who believed that they are on a kind of ideological tour to save maybe the future of the West and so on and so forth. So
the future of the white race?
Or, yes, yes.
This video has sent a shiver across Ukraine. The marching young men are far-right nationalists from the Nationalny Drużyny, or National Militia. They're at a sacred spot, Ukraine's crucible. Maidan, Independence Square in central Kiev. This was the Maidan in 2014, as hundreds of thousands of people rallied and ultimately forced out an unpopular president. Russia branded it a coup, orchestrated by neo-Nazis and fascists. Its founder, this man Andrei Beletsky, has in the past expressed racist and anti-Semitic views. Its logo has clear Nazi overtones.
My favorite quote from Andrei Beletsky is that the destiny of the Ukrainian nation is to be an avant-garde in holy war of white people against underhumans led by Semites.